Really?
Kevin, call the roll.
You ready? All right. Chair Harry Meyer.
Yep.
Vice Chair Gary Delvaux.
Here.
Jim Blumerick. I'm here. Alderman Joe Moore. Melanie Parma has to be excused. Matt Schuler has to be excused. And Tom Weber.
I'm here.
Okay. And as representatives, Jeff is here.
Ask for a motion to approve the agenda that's sent out to all of us.
So move. Second.
Second by Joe, and second by Tom. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carried. New business, consideration with possible action on a request to approve a term sheet with Lexington Realty International LLC for Easttown Mall redevelopment at 2350 East Mason Street, tax parcel 2126-7 and 23502-390 East Mason Street, tax parcel 211263. Kevin, floor is yours.
Thank you. All right. Today we're having a meeting to talk about potential redevelopment of the Easttown Mall. And just so we're all clear on what exactly the parcels that we're talking about. Main Street, Mason Street, Easttown Mall here, Kohl's, that is a separate entity that is not part of this discussion. But here's the core of the mall, and then the Hobby Lobby and Petco stores. These structures and this parking lot out here, and actually this little goofy spot of land in here, this is all part of the deal that we're discussing, and these are the two parcels which are involved. With that, staff has been in discussions with Lexington Realty International. They're a company out of New Jersey. They specialize in kind of taking rundown malls and breathing new life into them, bringing new tenants to them, which then generates additional tenancy and then development in that area. They had an interest in exploring a purchase of this mall and doing some redevelopment. So they've been talking to the city about what are we looking for there, and what could we help provide. I think from a city perspective, I've only been here a few years, but from what I've discussed in planning, this is a real neighborhood center and a core. And you look at some of these stores and Kohl's and the Shopko and all these restaurants along the outside that do really well, but we have this mall itself that's really struggling. And it's been really tough to kind of figure out, all right, well, what's going to move this forward? Just malls nationwide, that type of indoor mall has been declining, and then we saw it with Port Plaza downtown. We see it here. You could say other malls, around the area or country, are starting to see some of these things as well. So we see this as a real opportunity to really, start a catalytic project and a process that really, redevelops this area into that retail core that can service the neighborhood like it had been and will in the future. If you look at a potential growth area and redevelopment, we're always focusing on redeveloping our neighborhoods and additional housing there, but our growth is on the east side. In terms of new housing units and single-family homes, they're going to be on the east side, and they're going to really benefit, from additional development here. And so to look at bringing in, some retailers that, again, service this neighborhood, also are attractive to visitors. This is not far off I-43, so it's very convenient to get to. We really feel, in the city's perspective, we have a great opportunity to move forward with a significant redevelopment project here. Before you today, what we have is discussion of a term sheet that we've discussed with our development team and gone back and forth with the developer. I will put the developer, I'll bring them up on the phone right now. They're not able to attend in person. We have met with them twice in person. They've come here and while they're working on their due diligence, and we've had discussions about other projects they've done and what they want to do here. But I'll bring them up on the phone if you'd like to ask them some questions directly. In short, before we kind of move any further on the process, we and the developer want to get a sense. Where's the Redevelopment Authority's appetite for moving forward with the project? Where's City Council's appetite for moving forward with the project? And that's why this term sheet's been presented. If parties are agreeable, then we'll start working on a full-on development agreement. But before we do that, we want to just kind of get a sense of the terms and agreement there.
Do you know what the occupancy is out of the mall right now?
I don't have the exact number. I just remember the last map I got. There's a lot of vacant. There's a few retail stores in the back core. The theater is probably the biggest tenant, outside of the the main tenants, the Hobby Lobby, Petco, and then the theater in the back. But again, they're struggling with rents, and when you look at, the long-term vacancy that's been there, they think they can do, and the city thinks we can do a lot better there. Part of the reason for coming here today is, again, and why we're running, a term sheet before a development agreement. I think it's a good process to get us all on the same page. Part of this would involve an expansion of the TID 10. That is the Mason and Main TID. It currently, right now, does not cover the East Town Mall property. It is just a little further up, so it would not have to be extended that far. But, if there's not a project, it's not worth expanding the TID. As we've talked about before, that's a separate process that would go on, but I think
Great.
it doesn't pay to go through that if there's not a project to be had.
Great.
So with that, just in an overview, I think I provided in the memo, on the term sheet, just an overview of the redevelopment project. In short, it's turning them all inside out, converting it, taking up the interior corridor, in short, kind of shaving the front so it'll be all flush, and providing that with a variety of medium box-sized stores, looking at a variety of different retail uses. The developer at this point, just because of negotiations, is not comfortable, talking about the tenants in public at this time. There is closed session language on here if we do want to go in and talk a little bit about the negotiations, and you want to hear about, some of the actual tenants and also some of the financials that we've been talking about. I think we could discuss it there, and the developer would be willing to share some more information. Based on our discussions that we've had, we're confident in these are, very recognizable national tenants that are going to draw, additional tenancy and additional demand around there.
So you have had that discussion, so you know who some of these folks are?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. And they've been talking, and it's not just, we'd like to have them here. There are points with, letters of intent and
Okay.
serious discussions that they've done work with them before.
Kevin, would they continue to have access from the inside of the mall and the outside? Is that the idea?
Inside the mall will be gone.
Be gone?
Inside the mall will be gone. So I think on the last page of your term sheet, that kind of showed a small sketch up
Yep.
of how, here,
No.
Yeah.
the mall would be configured, and in short, it's front to back. So the
Yeah.
primary retail entrances will be on the front, or the side facing Mason, that's the bottom here, and in the back will be loading docks. So these are straight boxes, front to back. The interior corridor goes away.
Okay.
I think we all have a lot of
Sure.
questions, but maybe we could start out with item D on your term sheet.
Yep.
Let me see if I understand this correctly. 2006 assessed value of the mall was 9.9 million, with real estate taxes of 219,000. Then it's going to drop down, we understand this, to 3.8 million. But with this project, it would go back up to 15,161,000, is that correct?
Correct.
So the big drop off from the 9 to the 3 is because of activities that are in the mall? I mean, why the value
Correct.
drop so much?
I'm just going to pause quick, and I'm going to bring the developer
Okay.
up on the phone just in case there's some of these questions that
Sure.
they may be able to answer more directly, and then
Sure.
I'll just kind of go through the talk about that assessment
Okay.
value. Hi, this is Kevin Vaughn from the City of Green Bay.
Hi, Kevin. How are you?
I'm doing well. You must have been waiting a call. It didn't even ring here.
There? We're holding our breath.
Okay, that's all right. So we just got into starting our meeting, and we're just going to go through the term sheet. I'm going to, like I said, lead the meeting and answer some questions. I just wanted to bring you on board in case there's something that I may redirect to you. Just for your information, right now we are in open session, so we do have the public here and the media here. I will let you know if we decide to go into closed session, but just for right now, we are in open session for discussion.
Okay, great. I'll be careful what I say.
Sure. And again, maybe just if you just want to quickly introduce, I believe Eric and Alan, you're on. If you just want to introduce yourselves real quickly.
Okay, hi. I'm Alan Roskinski, and Eric Frankel's here together with me. We're from Lexington, Lexington Realty International, based out of Lakewood, New Jersey. Our property portfolio extends throughout the eastern half of the United States. And, we have strong standing in the Midwest. We actually have been dealing with many of the tenants that we're working on with the project in Green Bay that we're looking to go ahead and develop. Many of those tenants we've been working with in the past. And very confident that we can get this closed based on all the activity that has an interest that's been shown to us.
Great.
How many malls do they own?
How many malls, how many properties in total do you gentlemen own, or your company own?
About 14 in total, which includes malls, strip centers, and one office building in Pennsylvania.
And I believe at a time you were involved in a property in Sheboygan?
I was the third-party manager in a property in Sheboygan, Wisconsin, which now belongs at Myers, the supermarket company. They bought that to develop into a full-fledged grocery there.
Sure. Otherwise, closest, I think you have some properties in Minnesota?
Minnesota, I have 5 in Minnesota, I have in Watertown, South Dakota, I have in Iowa, in Tama, Iowa. That's pretty much our, there's a few million square feet just over there within the Midwest area.
So we were just discussing, our chair had a question on or vice chair, a question on the property values that were stated in the term sheet. Just to kind of answer that, right now the current assessed value is just about 9.9 million. We anticipate that value going down to 3.8 million based on a potential purchase price. And that is, when our assessor looks at the value of a property, what somebody is able to pay for it on the open market, that is generally a fair way of assessing, okay, here's really how much a property is worth. So if we look at an agreement, if we can get a purchase and sale at 3.8 million, based on, we've had some discussion, and you can maybe talk a little bit more about, construction in your budget, putting between $6 and $8 million into the renovation. When all is said and done, our assessor's office feels that this property will be worth about $15.1 million. And that value just reflects what is going on the mall here. That does not include the potential for any additional outlot shopping centers. I think our chair asked about, the corridor. Well, there's no corridor. There's still a few stores in the mall that may have an interest in being still at East Town or additional ones. And based on the square footage, we're going to be shaving off some. As we work through the process, there may be opportunities, it's a pretty big parking lot out there to create some additional outlots, with a smaller strip center that could add potentially additional value.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Okay, so I disagree that the purchase price has anything to do with the assessed value in this. If someone purchases something in a foreclosure or a short sale, it doesn't cause the value of the building to reduce. And a $6.1 million reduction, it almost just kind of seems like funny math to try to make this thing work. So I'm just curious how we're looking at a $6.1 million reduction from year to year when there's been no change really in the status of the building.
Would you like me to answer that, or Kevin, would you like to interject?
Sure, I'll discuss a little bit, and one from our perspective, I think, the value that's on there right now, I guess without disclosing too much, we believe is high and could be challenged, and nobody really has successfully challenged it or made a case of why it's that high. The value, I can't tell the exact date from when this was last fully assessed. Probably, I don't know, go back to 2007 or 2008, but it's been over-assessed, but, according to our assessor's office, I believe there has been a challenge just look at our finance director here, there has been a challenge issued to this, but they really didn't present a strong case, and so the current value has been upheld, because they didn't give any reasoning why it should be. So from our perspective, that 9.9 number is already artificially high to start with.
Has that been the assessed value for several years?
I believe it has
But
been,
the equalization is very close to that.
yes. Yes, but to a point made earlier, there is a lot of vacancies, so I don't know if if the value's been challenged and they haven't brought forward a good case of the vacancies has since reduced the value of the property, you know, again, it was before the board review earlier this year. They did present a strong case and our value was upheld. But again, there's a lot of vacancy in that building.
If an apartment building has vacancies, then is the assessed value of that building reduced?
Vacancies, as far as apartment buildings, I believe when the assessors look at it, they'll look at what the market is for vacancies and take that into consideration on their value.
I think when we also look at commercial properties, there can be also greater emphasis on vacancies, but then also, you know, net operating income and what they're actually able to pull in rent, and that can drive a little bit more. And, you know, again, since this time, I think those rents, what they're able to get has been reduced.
I want to just expand a little bit what
Sure.
Kevin just mentioned. The current NOI had dropped drastically. Just this year, Dollar Tree left. There's only 10 leases into place. And I can definitely go into closed session a lot more detail on what the actual value is. But when we bought the property, this was not a foreclosure sale. This was an open sale, marketed to regular. This is not an auction sale that we're talking about. This is done through the regular methods. We're buying it based on what's income in place. And actually, we're playing slightly higher because of the redevelopment opportunity. If you take straight value, what's there today, and the length of those leases which are there today, and the fact that malls in general are not a favorable asset as far as sales. When we're done with this asset, it's going to be a strip center, it's going to be more of a strip center style, and not so much that mall style, which gives it increased value. But anywhere in the country, malls are looked at, especially when it comes to smaller cities. Malls are just not a high value asset. Those are 12%. Those are all the 12 caps. And the income is going down. There's something of short-term leases throughout the interior part of the mall.
Good. And the 15 million is assuming that all of these things are gonna happen, they're all gonna fill in, right? I mean,
The 15 million is, yes, based on information that was provided to us in terms of
Yep, I
potential
have no
rents.
problem, I'm just saying that it's based on everything happening, all leases taking place.
Correct, and the client provided us, you know, their estimate was a higher value based on a little bit lower cap rate, but I think, you know, we look at things a little bit differently in terms of our assessor and the way we account for property taxes and that rate, so that's why it comes in lower. And as I've said here before, I prefer that we have the
Yes.
conservative of numbers in terms
Yes.
of which we base our value.
I just want to say the 3.8 is based on an accepted offer or closing at that price for the mall, which sold in '07 for $12 million.
I'll let our client disclose.
We are currently on the contract for that number.
You are, okay.
On the contract for that number,
So the value's been established. It's an
the
arm's
value's been
length,
established.
arm's length transaction.
This whole thing is based on us closing this transaction before year end. And we are also basing this on actual lease negotiations that we're having at the moment with those various tenants.
Okay. Maybe Kevin, you explain, what does the library do to the valuation at all?
Sure.
Since they're on tax on the lease?
Correct. So in terms of one of the opportunities that we have before us, just kind of a parallel track, city staff has been talking with Brown County Library Administration. They had conducted a library facility study talking about different needs that they had identified in that study. It recommends a larger footprint for an East Branch library. So in talking, with their director about potential alternatives, we'd love for them to continue to be in the city. I know there's potential for them, based on growth, to go to Bellevue or somewhere else. But I think in terms of core population service, we want to keep them in the city. I think this neighborhood serves them very well. So we put these two together. They have a few alternatives that they're looking at. With this, I think there's the library and the developer are talking about just kind of the ratio of build-out cost to lease rate and where those might fall in terms of, okay, if you build X, this is how much it's going to lease for, and trying to get to a point where they agree with those. If it is a lease structure, we will still capture tax value because they will be a tenant. So much like the Children's Museum, they are a nonprofit, but they're a tenant in a privately owned building. So if that is the case, we'll continue to capture tax revenue from that.
Footprint, is there a change in the footprint or the square footage of the complex?
Of the library or of the?
No, of the entire project.
No, so right now,
The walls
the library would be proposed for taking the theater space, which would be vacated, which is about 27,000 square feet. It's much larger than the library has right now. They've also considered, if they don't need all that space right away, could they partner with other groups, other nonprofits who are looking for space to, share some of that, until they grow into it. But it would involve just basically the theater space. It's a little tougher space, when you're in retail, because it doesn't have any frontage
Right.
to the parking lot.
Right.
So in terms of getting tenants in there, it's got great access on the back side. There's a separate entrance, there's a separate parking lot, but if you're a retailer, that's not where you want to be. So I think we've had some discussions, with the developer, and that's why this library concept came up. Otherwise, you're looking at kind of a destination user where it's, maybe like a fitness center or, something along those lines that's not, again, quite as desirable.
This does include the Hobby Lobby.
Correct, and correct me, but the Hobby Lobby stays as is. With some facade improvements.
Belong to Petco are staying exactly where they are.
So the 15 million includes or excludes leasing property in Brown County for the library?
Includes.
So the 15 million, okay, so that's,
It includes all this space, yes, being leased here.
Can you go back to the previous picture?
This one?
Okay, you're right. So the 15 million, that's this picture here, I presume, but does not include that strip of land down below there.
Does not include,
There-
it includes basically everything from Coles
Right.
east.
But didn't you say it also include, that this project also include that?
This?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so that's also potential investment.
That's probably gonna be a stormwater pond.
Oh, really?
Well, just to be honest, in terms of, you have residential
All right.
here,
All right.
you have a car dealership here.
Okay.
I
That's fine.
I don't know what else much you can put in here, but if
Okay.
you build up more here, is there a way you can engineer this
Okay.
to be some green space?
Kevin, is the theater still operating?
Offering that to the library
Yes.
as additional parking. If
Correct.
they choose to develop that at that point. We don't really have any particular use for the land. We're not
Okay.
increasing our footprint currently, but the library would like to have extra parking. And I'm not sure if Kevin did mention, we are going to have a corridor to the front of the library space. So, they can have access to the library from the front, but they will have access, the main park lot could be in the back part. And if they need additional employee parking or whatever for charity people, or whoever they decide, they will have use of that land.
so what if the library doesn't work out, what are the contingency plans?
I guess we can discuss a little bit about that. Our hope is that we can get the library to go there. I think, and as we talk about some of the, financial incentives, that's one of the reasons in terms of us, advocating for dollars into this and dollars up front, is that there's a true public component and public benefit to this, in, providing a real public amenity to that. I think it's important for us to, again, doing the term sheet, RDA on board, city on board, at least then, can we get a sense from the library board and or the county board, are they on board? I think for the developers, and I'll let them speak for themselves, the library makes this work. If the library is not on board, I think we have a very small window and small opportunity to get something else in there, but for all intents and purposes, we need the library to make this work.
Exactly, I couldn't have said it better myself. There are some other options, but the library is definitely the deal that, when we were sitting there, that made this deal steamroll forward.
This is a bloomer question, but I'll ask it to Don. TID 10, could you tell us a little bit about that?
TID 10 is the TIF district out by the
Right.
Main and Mason.
Right.
And I don't know, does it go all the way to Mason Street and then it stretches the,
It covers the corner.
I guess I'm more interested in where it's at.
oh, it
Sure.
is in good standings. It has a couple $100,000 to $300,000 of fund balance.
And the life?
And the life, Kevin, do you have life up there on that
Yeah,
TID?
I'm just gonna
Thank you.
pull up some information on that.
Sorry, I asked you a question, Jim.
TID 10 was created in 2004. Currently, it is set to expire, it's a 27-year TIF, so it's set to expire in 2031. Could be extended year-wise, a possibility of 4 years. Again, as we start to talk about financials a little bit, our assumptions were based on using the current lifespan of it. So the request would be to expand physically the border of the TID, but not to expand the lifespan of the TID.
Okay.
I think financially it works without having to expend those. And I was just going to pull up, I think Dawn, to her point, the reason, again, this project worked is because TID 10 is fiscally healthy and
Right.
could support
So this is
this.
not one that keeps you up at night?
It is not.
Okay, that's good. All right.
Is the, Kevin, maybe you can answer this, or maybe they can answer this, the increase in valuation, the assessed valuation is going to go up roughly 83, 84, 84. Is that approximating the total investment, or are we, because oftentimes those are very different?
So in terms of where we came up with that 15.1 million
Well,
number?
not that so much. I'm not worried about what, I'm talking about their actual investment, what the project cost is
Sure.
going to be, not the assessed valuation.
I believe our initial talks on budget, and you can describe this, were somewhere around 8 million. So, you know, if you're taking the project cost and 75% of translating into value, you get the 9 plus 6 and around 15. So it works out that way, and it also works out through the cost approach.
And your valuation, your assessed valuation now is based on projected valuation, correct? The 9,
The 15?
no, no.
Sorry.
No, the 9.9.
The 9.9, that is actual right now.
Right.
That is what is on the books right now.
Okay.
That is the value that's been on the books for several years. And I think that's what Alderman Moore was talking about, and what we
Well-
feel is artificially high.
And so
But
the
the
new.
tax records reflected different,
um,
substantially. They're over $1 million different.
Oh, I can take a look at that. Do you have both parcels?
Yep.
Okay. I can take a look at
Yeah,
that.
that just kind of
Yep.
confused me.
Okay.
I did not look at it specifically what the value is, but I certainly
Yeah.
can do that.
And our assessor's little report also reflects the same.
There may be some discrepancy too in terms of personal property, and I don't know what was accounted for.
That wouldn't be on here, there should be just improvements in land. On the
Okay.
tax.
And the tax roll is different.
Yeah, tax.
Okay.
Yeah, by 1.1.
Is that a 2015 or 2016?
Well, the tax they pay, the assessed valuation doesn't change until there's a reassessment.
Sure.
And there's no, I think it's similar to, I don't know, the commercial assessment process as much as the residential. That's going to occur in November to determine the millage, but and you can use the equalization factor, which, as I indicated before, is pretty close. I can give you those numbers really easily. Equalization on -7 parcel is 6469. 6 million, yeah, 6,469,000. And on the -3 parcel, it's 4,286,000. So we're over 11 million on this record versus your 99. I mean, it's over $1 million difference. That's, those last numbers were not assessed. Those were the equalization, right, equalized values. The assessed values, if you want those, -7 again, 6639,800, and 4393,600.
So your concern is that the initial number, the 2016 one, is off from what?
Yeah, just we're
Sure.
about 1.1 million. Dawn, does the equalization work the same on the commercial from the state? I mean, they give the data to the city at the same time as
Yes,
they do
and then we
everything?
take our
comes in.
assessed value and they
Right, you
equate
divide
to
it by the
equals.
equalization factor, but it comes to us from the state around the same time. I mean, they don't differentiate between, they do in value, but not in timing, giving you the equalization factor. Is that correct? or not?
Equalized value factor is usually not given to us until end of November. It's usually a little bit later. They'll give us equalized value, but we actually don't know that, the ratio until late November.
But both of them are the same, commercial and residential?
Yes, yes,
They're
you
not
have
the same
one-
number,
yes.
the timing is the same.
So if I'm the owner of the property, and I get the record of this meeting, I'm coming back to the joint review board next June or whenever you hold that, and I've got a great case on $3.8 million. So I understand the discrepancy between the 9 million and 11 million. The whole question is the $3.8 million is at arm's length.
Right.
You know, was there competition involved in trying to sell it? So is that a true market value?
That, I would like, if the developers want to disclose a little bit more about that, I think that's been part of our discussion in the negotiations, and I think we can open up a little bit more about that in closed session, including, I think, just Chairman Meyer, you had talked about, where the theater's at and where some of these leases are at, and just all the other factors that go into play in terms of determining that. I think that's the best say for that. But I think we can open up a little bit more about that.
Should we move into closed session then?
How much of this can be open as far as the term sheet? So I just have a comment I think I'd like to make.
Sure.
At the numbers that we have on here of 9.9 million yielding 219,000 in real estate taxes, if we reduce that valuation, that's 135,000 a year. Once the TIF is over and paid back, which would be about 12 years at a $250,000 increase, take 12 years to pay back that TIF, then the taxpayers are on the hook for the $135,000 reduction for the next 12 years. And as much as I'd like to see a project out here, that's what you're going to have to sell us on.
Sure, and I think we went through that because I think, you're able to use that's why we have the TIF district, is you're able to use the increment for value. Our fear here is just based on what this property is able to sell for, is that somebody could purchase this property and sit on it.
Right.
And, that's just kind of the risk or trade-off that we have here, and we feel that we're at a point that, we're taking that off the levy rolls in a sense by going through this. Could that also still happen, that somebody could come through and purchase it, sit on it, or demolish it? I can't predict the future, but that's one of the risks that we're weighing against in terms of why we're moving forward.
You didn't make cash flow at 3.8. If that's a number, and somebody does just sit out, they don't want to invest in it, so we don't get any increment. And they will, if there's a transaction, not that they go dollar for dollar based on the sale price versus what the assessor's going to bring it down to. But that certainly is great evidence of a different value than the current, whether it's $9 or $11 million. It's going to come down substantially based on an arm's length transaction of this nature. So we're going to see the value come down one way or the other. If the owners of the property today read the minutes of this, they're going to be running to the
right.
Yeah, that's exactly what that's exactly what Jim said. So I think we just have to accept the fact that this is going to be a 3.8442 whatever assessed value property for a stage in time. That's what we're going to be dealing with. Whether we ever have the opportunity then to have it improved and gain the taxes after the TIF is paid off or not, who knows? But if it's a different buyer, and these people want to invest only and they want to improve it, get different NOI out of it. I think we've got to look hard at somebody who's willing to do this, because the cat's out of the bag.
Yeah. No doubt.
Which, just in terms of, again, kind of timing on this, reason for, we got to a point finally in terms of negotiations with the developer, we're comfortable with this, but they have a time period for due diligence, and that's why,
Sure.
In terms of lining these things up, they've got, basically to make a move by the end of the year, and I think that's why, yeah, it's a pressure situation, but like you said, the cat's out of the bag now in terms of here's what this property is actually worth.
Dr. Von Put, is there any risk to the city here if we were to forward this along to the Joint Review Board to discuss the expansion of the TIF? What is our promise? What is our action here? Because obviously there's going to be a development agreement that's going to come that is going to be the final bearing. But what if we push this all through and it gets through and we don't like the development agreement? Then, what happens at that point?
So in terms of lining up the process, our view was to bring forth a term sheet if parties agree, RDA and city and developer agree to a term sheet, then we would start a process with JRB to amend the TID, because that's the next logical step, because then if the TID doesn't get expanded, well, then the project doesn't happen, or I mean, we need to look at things again. So it would be starting the process of JRB to amend the TID 10 plan to include this area, getting that squared away while we work on a development agreement, and depending on the timing, both of those, again, would have to fall to place. We felt it doesn't make sense to start a JRB process and amend a TID if you don't have a project in place. We also have I guess, a little bit of flexibility, even though, our deadline is to get something done this year, in terms of where the TID could actually get amended. We have until October of next year to make it active on 1 of 17, because that's really the key date where we want the value to take effect. There won't be any construction this year, so our concern is what's going to be 1/1. We want the base value 1/1 of 17 with new incremental value starting 1/1 of 18, 1/1 of 19. I felt, and I think we talked a little bit about this with the Cherry Street ramp project, just to go off for a little bit, but in the same process there of the reason for holding off on that is, look, we need to get projects in line, otherwise it doesn't pay for us to expand a TID and then just have it sit there and then potentially property go offline, or worst case scenario, we expand the TID, this goes down in value and we've just ruined that TID.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Okay, sure. Makes good sense.
Okay, any other questions? Harry?
Yeah.
Gallo.
Go ahead.
Gallery here. Just a couple questions. Following up a little bit on Mr. Moore. I don't know if I'm understanding correctly. Presently, it's assessed at between 9 and 10 million. It was 9 point something. I understand that correctly?
9, 9, and 11.
So I figured out what it was. It is 11,033. I just looked at the improved value and did not include the land value in there, and so that was a
How
scrivener's
much is it
error.
assessed at right now?
$11 million.
11 million, okay. And am I understanding that the owner came before the board of review to try to reduce his assessment?
Yes.
The current owner did come before the Board of Review in June or May, and did not have a strong case, so therefore the value that was on the property stayed on the property.
Okay, well, that is the value then.
Yes.
As far as we're
Yes.
concerned,
Yes.
that's the taxes that are being collected, so
Yes.
I don't know where this voodoo assessment, we're speculating what it's going to be after something's purchased. The purchase price is not the only value. I mean, if they're building out and all that sort of thing, it's going to have a value, but I guess, I'm wondering, when exactly did the buyer consider buying this site? Could he answer that, or?
Sure. We had a question, Eric Allen, a question from an alderman. When did you first start looking and considering this property?
We started looking at this property at the beginning of May. April, actually, beginning of April. I believe we met you the first time, beginning of the May. We came to meet you in your office.
Correct.
And we actually started negotiations in May.
So this has been in your office, at least the idea of it, for about 5 months now or so?
Correct.
Okay. The purchase price that he's revealed is that he wants to buy it for 3.8 million, am I understanding that correctly? And what is the estimated total rent or lease value of it, assuming it was full?
So our assessor came up with, based on how they would so I guess two questions. One, if it were full now, or one, if it were full under their proposed redevelopment?
Well, I'm looking at their proposed redevelopment.
At the proposed redevelopment, if it were full, it would be $15.1 million.
That's their annual revenue?
I'm sorry, that would be what it would be assessed at.
I'm not interested in the assessment.
Sure.
I want to know what the estimated income on the property is going to be.
That is one of the things that I would like to discuss in closed session, because that involves some of their tenant negotiations right now, which their tenants do
Okay.
not want to get out. But I think you could talk a little bit more about your projected numbers, existing numbers, and your projected numbers in closed session.
Yes, I'll be happy to. In closed session, once I go to the public, I'll be happy to disclose.
Would that be acceptable?
Yeah, I
Okay.
have that question there.
So I make a motion to go to closed session.
Second.
You want to read off the... Sure.
Motion is the authority to make a meeting in closed session pursuant to sections 1985 of one of the Wisconsin statutes for the purpose of deliberating or negotiating the sale of public properties, investing in public funds, or conducting other specified public business as necessary for competitive or bargaining reasons. The authority may thereafter reconvene in open session pursuant to section 1985 Wisconsin statutes to report the results of the closed session and consider the balance of the agenda.
All right. Harry Meyer?
Yes?
Gary Delvo?
Yes.
Jim Blumrick? Yes. Alderman Joe Moore? Tom Weber? Here. Okay.
Right, in closed session, we intend to discuss...
Oh,
Motion, please.
Motion...
Okay. So for moving back into open session,
Yep.
Gary Meyer?
Yes.
Gary Delvo?
Yes.
Jim Blumrick? Yes. Alderman Joe Moore?
Yes.
And Tom Weber?
Cheryl, you'll invite them back if anybody's left? Well, I think you did a good job, Kevin.
very good.
Kevin, how soon do you think we'd have a development agreement with these people?
Depending on what happens here now and what happens on council, we would start working on drafting one. Like you said, their due diligence period, they want to get something wrapped up by the end of the year.
Well, during the closed session, we had a very lengthy discussion with the two developers on this project for East Town Mall, and we agreed that we're going to continue negotiations with them to get a fair price for the city of Green Bay on the cost of the operation. So,
I think we're going to make a
Comment
move.
on
yeah,
that.
right.
Yeah.
Just comment on it real quick. I like this deal. I like these terms based on our current valuations. I don't like them based on the
Proposed.
$9 million reduction in assessed value between 2016 and 2017, so I'm not going to support this term sheet today. Thank you.
You gonna make the motion, Gary, to?
Well, I'll make the motion to support the term sheet. I think based on the one caveat, why don't you put that wording in?
I think, in terms of looking at perhaps, we'd put it somewhere in section 1, tax increment financing, and B, nature of the TIF incentive. If we look at, I don't know if Vanessa, you want to come through with me here and just see where application, perhaps adding another bullet point. Just trying to think where. In short, the RDA would like to add language into here that the developer shall pay incremental taxes equivalent to cover 110% of the city's debt service based on $2 million up front. So somewhere, I think within that section 1, sub B, sub 1, maybe adding another item under there. I think that kind of covers the gist of what the RDA is looking for, to make sure that the developer would cover the tax payments, or cover our debt service.
Just a couple of comments. I think this mall, I think it's a tremendous boost, and based on the new potential tenants, which sound like a real good potential, I think it'll give that mall that boost. Plus, the bottom line is, this assessed value is gonna drop like a rock, based on the sale, and we need to stimulate it to get those dollars back up there, and this definitely will do that. So the bottom line, I approve the term sheet with the caveat that was just mentioned.
Second.
And the direction to that, just as a comment, direction to the caveat isn't as much a caveat as a change of the current assessed valuations to a correct number, because
Yeah.
anybody can look at that. That's
Yeah.
Correct.
Motion by Gary, then second by Jim, to approve the term sheet as outlined with the caveat outlined by,
Sorry,
no, we haven't voted yet, by Kevin covering the debt service with operation.
Alderman Zima is excused.
Oh, Guy, go ahead.
I just like to give a little perspective to this. I think the term sheet is, out of line probably by at least a half. I mean, as I look at this, they're talking about a $12 million investment, but they want about 25% of it to come from the city of Green Bay. 25%. I mean, roughly speaking, 3 million versus 12. They also want us to guarantee through a government lease, through the county, 10% of their income. I just don't see that as a real good deal. I think all of us would like to see something good happen out at the East Town Mall. And, if somebody fails, they can't sell, well, maybe they need to reinvest in their property too. Our business isn't just to bail everything out, but somebody new comes in, how much do you give to basically retailers? My basic philosophy is that, one is that if you're going to subsidize anything, I like to subsidize industry because that brings new jobs into your community. When you subsidize retail operations, retail lives off of your economy. It doesn't create your economy, it just is part of the interaction of your economy, but it doesn't really create your economy, it lives off of it. And just for an example, the fresh time, I appreciate Mr. Bluebrick's comment. I'd like to see it.
Sir, Alderman, with all due respect, please, we have things in closed session for a reason.
Oh, wasn't that? Isn't that
No, that is not.
Well, I'm sorry, well, let's just say a grocery store, because that was public knowledge, excuse me. But whenever any grocery store comes in, it takes away from the other grocery stores that are there. Whatever their new line might be, it takes from the others that you have. So I don't know, I think you have to think twice. When you subsidize one operation, it's at the expense of others that maybe aren't asking or using their own money. So I think this is way too high. It's beyond any of our norms here. When have we given 25%? Downtown, the standard, whether you need it or not, is 20%. This is up higher. I mean, it's a darn good deal for them, I think. But I think you really should take this under advisement. You should study it. You should think about it. You should try to get feedback. I'm glad I came here today. I'm glad I got some information, and it gives me food for thought. I have a lot of other notes here. I don't want to burden you with those at this point in time, but
Well, Guy, I think some of your points that you make, Kevin should take up in his continuing negotiations with the developer.
Correct, and I just,
well, the term sheet isn't set on this 3 million?
well, the term sheet is on this 3 million, and with that, I think,
It is or it isn't?
the term sheet is on 3 million, correct?
Okay, well, I don't know where you guys are coming from with that, but.
So with that, just to answer the Alder's point, I think, when we as a development team go through a project and bring something to you, we don't have a standard formula.
Right.
We look at what makes the project work. I think in terms of the criteria that we look at, objectives of trying to, eliminate blight, create jobs, do those things for the city, I think that is good. Creating additional development. We look at, financing and the ability to fill a gap that a project that wouldn't otherwise happen without for the city's assistance. We bring that forward. I think we're pretty clear that the city never wants to be the lead on it or the majority stakeholder on things.
No.
But in terms of, a specific percentage that we are, we can look at it in terms of a percentage of costs that they're bringing in, or you look at a percentage of the actual incremental value or the percentage of the final value. Again, I think just trying to discuss through some of the numbers. It's our job to present what we feel, at least financially, is the best case for the city, and,
Right.
and the Redevelopment Authority and council can agree or disagree on that.
Okay, we've
Well,
heard the
you're
motion
getting
and
25%
the
stock.
agendas.
For your investment.
Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Joe, you're opposed? Opposed, right. So we have Joe Moore is opposed, and the motion passes on the 4-1 vote. Thank you.
All right, motion to adjourn.
Hold on. Second.
I can't make it.
We'll do
Motion to adjourn.
Chair rules.
do the chair rules.
I was gonna say, chair rules, we're adjourned.
All right. There we go. Yeah, sorry.